The reason you're not living your dream life is because you're too busy living everyone else's nightmare. You wake up every morning and check what other people are doing on social media instead of planning what you're going to do with your life. You spend your energy trying to impress people who don't matter instead of focusing on the goals that do matter. You make decisions based on what will make other people comfortable instead of what will make you successful. You've become so obsessed with fitting in that you've forgotten what you're supposed to be fitting into, your own destiny. The crowd you're following is lost. The leaders you're copying are failures. And the advice you're taking is from people who have never been where you want to go. There comes a moment in every person's life when they stand at the crossroads of conformity and greatness. Most people never reach this moment because they're too busy following the crowd, copying what everyone else is doing and living someone else's dream. But you're different. You're here because something inside you is stirring. Something is telling you that the path you've been walking isn't your path at all. I want to tell you about an eagle that was raised among chickens, this magnificent bird. Born to soar through the clouds and rule the skies, spent its entire young life pecking at the ground, eating scraps, and believing it was just another chicken. Day after day, it watched the other chickens scratch and peck, and it did the same. It never looked up. It never questioned why it felt different. It never wondered why something deep inside kept telling it there was more. One day, an old eagle flying overhead saw this magnificent bird walking among the chickens. He swooped down and said, "What are you doing down there? You're not a chicken. You're an eagle. You belong in the sky." But the young eagle replied, "No, you're mistaken. I'm just like everyone else here. I eat what they eat. I do what they do. I am what they are." The old eagle grabbed that young bird and took it to the top of a mountain. He said, "Look around you. Look at the vastness. Look at the horizon. This is your domain. This is where you belong." And for the first time in its life, that young eagle spread its wings. Not to flap like the chickens did, but to catch the wind. And in that moment, everything changed. The eagle realized it had been living a lie. It had been settling for a life that was far beneath its potential. You see, most people are living like that eagle before it was awakened. They're surrounded by other people who have accepted mediocrity as normal. They wake up, go to work, come home, watch television, and repeat the same cycle day after day. They measure their success by comparing themselves to other people who are just as lost as they are. They find comfort in numbers. They find security in following the crowd. But here's what they don't understand. The crowd is going nowhere special. The crowd is moving in circles. The crowd is headed toward average, toward ordinary, toward forgettable. And when you follow the crowd, you become part of the crowd. Your voice gets lost in the noise. Your dreams get buried under everyone else's expectations. Your potential gets suffocated by other people's limitations. The moment you realize you're different is the moment your real life begins. It's the moment when you stop asking, "What do other people think I should do?" and start asking, "What was I born to do?" It's when you stop looking around for validation and start looking within for direction. It's when you stop trying to fit in and start preparing to stand out. But let me warn you, this awakening comes with a price. When you start walking your own path, people will notice. They'll question you. They'll criticize you. They'll try to pull you back into the crowd because your independence threatens their comfort zone. Your willingness to be different makes them uncomfortable with their choice to be the same. Your family might not understand. Your friends might distance themselves. Your colleagues might think you've lost your mind. But here's what you must understand. Their reaction is not about you. It's about them. It's about their fear. It's about their regret. It's about their awareness that they're still pecking at the ground while you're preparing to soar. The eagle that was raised among chickens had to make a choice. It could return to the safety of the chicken coop, or it could embrace the uncertainty of the sky. Most people choose the chicken coop. They choose the familiar discomfort over the unfamiliar opportunity. They choose the guaranteed average over the possible extraordinary. But not you. You're here because something inside you is refusing to accept average. Something inside you is demanding more. Something inside you knows that you were not created to blend in with everyone else. You were created to stand apart. You were created to make a difference. You were created to walk alone when necessary to reach your destination. This is your awakening moment. This is when you stop living by other people's rules and start creating your own. This is when you stop following other people's dreams and start pursuing your own. This is when you stop being a copy of someone else and start being an original version of yourself. The lone wolf doesn't walk alone because it's antisocial. The lone wolf walks alone because it has a destination that the pack doesn't understand. It has a vision that the pack can't see. It has a mission that the pack won't accept. And it's willing to sacrifice the comfort of belonging for the satisfaction of becoming. Your time of walking with the crowd is over. Your time of seeking approval from people who don't understand your vision is over. Your time of dimming your light so others won't feel uncomfortable is over. Today, you begin the walk of the lone wolf. Today, you choose the path less traveled. Today, you choose greatness over acceptance, purpose over popularity, destiny over comfort. The eagle was never meant to live among chickens, and you were never meant to live an ordinary life. Now that you've awakened to your true nature, you must understand something that most people never learn. There is tremendous power in solitude. There is incredible strength in being alone, but most people are terrified of being by themselves because they've never learned the difference between being lonely and being alone. Let me tell you about a master craftsman I once knew. This man created the most beautiful furniture you've ever seen. His pieces were so extraordinary that people would travel from other countries just to see his work. But here's what made him different from every other furniture maker in the city. He worked alone. While other craftsmen hired assistants, formed partnerships, and created workshops with multiple people, this man chose to work in solitude. People thought he was crazy. They said, you could make so much more money if you hired help. You could produce more pieces if you had a team. You could expand your business if you weren't so stubborn about working alone. But this master craftsman understood something they didn't. He understood that excellence requires focus. And focus requires solitude when you're alone. There are no distractions. There are no other voices telling you how to do your work. There are no compromises to make with people who don't share your vision. There are no committee meetings to slow down your progress. There are no politics to navigate. There's just you, your vision, and your work. This craftsman would spend months on a single piece. He would examine every grain of wood. He would feel every curve. He would polish every surface until it was perfect. His competitors were producing 10 pieces in the time it took him to create one. But his one piece was worth more than their 10 pieces combined. Why? Because when you work alone, you can pursue perfection. When you work with others, you settle for compromise. The master craftsman's solitude wasn't loneliness. Loneliness is when you're alone and you don't want to be. Solitude is when you're alone and you choose to be. Loneliness is painful. Solitude is powerful. Loneliness makes you weak. Solitude makes you strong. When you choose solitude, you're forced to develop your own thoughts instead of borrowing other people's opinions. You're forced to create your own solutions instead of copying other people's methods. You're forced to trust your own judgment instead of relying on other people's approval. Think about every great leader in history. Before they led others, they spent time alone. They spent time thinking. They spent time planning. They spent time developing their vision. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led the Israelites. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert before he began his ministry. Gandhi spent years in solitude developing his philosophy before he changed a nation. Solitude is where greatness is born. It's where vision is developed. It's where character is built. It's where strength is forged. But most people can't handle solitude because they've never learned to enjoy their own company. They need constant stimulation. They need constant validation. They need constant validation. They need constant noise to drown out the voice of their own conscience when you're alone. You have to face yourself. You have to deal with your thoughts. You have to confront your fears. You have to examine your motives. You can't hide behind other people's personalities. You can't blame other people for your failures. You can't use other people as excuses for your lack of progress. This is why most people avoid solitude. It's too honest. It's too revealing. It's too demanding. But for the person who's serious about achieving greatness, solitude is not optional. It's essential. The master craftsman I told you about didn't just create beautiful furniture. He created a legacy. His work outlasted him. His name was remembered long after he was gone. His influence continued long after he stopped working. Why? Because he understood that when you're willing to walk alone, you can create something that stands alone. Your solitude is not a punishment. It's a privilege. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something is right with you. It's not evidence that you're antisocial. It's evidence that you're focused. It's not proof that you're difficult. It's proof that you're determined when you choose solitude. You're choosing to develop inner strength. You're choosing to build self-reliance. You're choosing to create something original instead of copying something common. You're choosing to be a leader instead of a follower. You're choosing to be remembered instead of forgotten. Now I want to teach you about the wolf. Not the wolf from fairy tales that scares children, but the real wolf. The wolf that nature created as one of its most intelligent and strategic creatures. The wolf that understands something about survival that most humans have forgotten. There was a harsh winter in the northern wilderness several years ago. The temperature dropped to levels that hadn't been seen in decades. The snow was so deep that it covered everything. Food became scarce. Water froze solid. Most animals died. Entire packs of wolves perished because they couldn't find enough food to feed everyone. But there was one wolf that survived. Not because it was the biggest, not because it was the strongest, but because it made a decision that the pack wouldn't make. When the pack decided to stay in their familiar territory and wait for conditions to improve, this wolf decided to leave. When the pack chose to stick together and share the little food they could find, this wolf chose to go alone and hunt for better opportunities. The pack called this wolf crazy. They said it would never survive on its own. They said it needed them. They said it was making a mistake. But this wolf understood something they didn't. Sometimes survival requires separation. Sometimes progress demands that you leave the group behind. This lone wolf traveled for days through the snow. It went to places the pack had never been. It explored territories the pack had never considered. It took risks the pack would never take. And eventually it found what it was looking for. A valley where the snow wasn't as deep. A place where small animals were still active. A source of fresh water that hadn't frozen while the pack was dying in their familiar territory. The lone wolf was thriving in unfamiliar territory while the pack was fighting over scraps. The lone wolf was feasting on abundance while the pack was making excuses. The lone wolf was making progress, you see. The wolf mentality is not about being mean or aggressive. It's about being focused and strategic. It's about understanding that sometimes you have to separate yourself from the crowd to reach your destination. It's about knowing when to stay and when to go. It's about having the courage to make unpopular decisions that lead to successful outcomes. Wolves are hunters, not scavengers. They don't wait for someone else to provide for them. They don't depend on luck or chance. They create their own opportunities. They study their environment. They plan their approach. They execute their strategy. They adapt when conditions change. Most people are not hunters, they're scavengers. They wait for someone else to create opportunities and then they try to get their share. They follow other people who are following other people who are following other people. And nobody knows where they're going. They move in groups because they're afraid to move alone. But the group is just as lost as they are. The lone wolf doesn't hunt in packs because it doesn't need to. It has developed superior skills. It has sharper instincts. It has better judgment. It has learned to trust itself completely. When it sees an opportunity, it doesn't need to consult with anyone. When it faces a challenge, it doesn't need anyone's permission to act. When it needs to change direction, it doesn't need anyone's approval. This is the wisdom of the wolf. This is the mentality you must develop. You must become a hunter, not a scavenger. You must become strategic, not reactive. You must become self-reliant, not dependent. You must learn to trust your instincts, even when others question your decisions. The wolf that survived that harsh winter didn't survive because it was lucky. It survived because it was prepared. It survived because it was willing to make difficult decisions. It survived because it chose temporary discomfort over permanent mediocrity. It survived because it walked alone when walking with others would have meant walking toward death. The greatest enemy of your potential is not your circumstances. It's not your lack of resources. It's not your background or your education. The greatest enemy of your potential is the herd mentality that keeps you trapped in other people's limitations. The herd tells you what's possible based on what they've seen other people do. The herd tells you what's realistic based on what they think they can achieve. The herd tells you what's safe based on what they're afraid to risk. But the herd has never been where you're going. The herd has never done what you're called to do. The herd has never seen what you can see. When you start breaking away from the herd, they will try to pull you back. Not because they want to hurt you, but because your independence exposes their dependence. Your courage exposes their fear. Your willingness to risk exposes their addiction. They will use guilt. They'll tell you that you're being selfish. They'll say you think you're better than everyone else. They'll remind you of all the times you needed their help. They'll make you feel bad for wanting something they don't want. They will use fear. They'll tell you about all the people who tried what you're trying and failed. They'll focus on the worst case scenarios. They'll paint pictures of disaster and disappointment. They'll try to convince you that it's better to be safe and sorry than sorry and safe. They will use logic. They'll give you all the practical reasons why your dream won't work. They'll show you statistics that prove you're likely to fail. They'll explain why the timing isn't right, why the market isn't ready, why you don't have enough experience. But here's what they won't tell you. Every person who ever achieved anything significant had to disappoint the people around them. Every person who ever broke through to a new level had to break away from the old crowd. Every person who ever created something original had to stop copying what everyone else was doing. You cannot reach your destination while carrying the weight of other people's limitations. You cannot soar to new heights while being anchored to other people's fears. You cannot run your race while trying to keep pace with people who are walking in circles. The moment you stop needing their approval is the moment you start living your life. The moment you stop explaining your decisions to people who don't understand your vision is the moment you start making real progress. The moment you stop trying to fit in is the moment you start standing out. Breaking free from the herd is not about being rebellious. It's about being responsible. You have a responsibility to maximize your potential. You have a responsibility to fulfill your purpose. You have a responsibility to become everything you were created to be. And you cannot fulfill that responsibility while living according to other people's expectations. The herd will always choose familiar misery over unfamiliar opportunity. They will always choose guaranteed average over possible extraordinary. They will always choose the comfort of complaining over the discomfort of changing. But you're not part of the herd anymore. You are the lone wolf who has learned to trust your own instincts. You are the eagle who has remembered how to fly. You are the person who has chosen greatness over acceptance, purpose over popularity, destiny over comfort. The herd will watch you leave. Some will criticize you, some will mock you, some will predict your failure, but some will secretly admire your courage. Some will quietly wish they had your strength, and some will eventually follow the path you're creating. But by then, you'll be so far ahead that you won't even notice. You'll be too busy living your purpose to worry about their opinions. You'll be too focused on your destination to look back at where you came from. Let me tell you the complete story of a man who understood what it meant to walk alone, like a lone wolf. His name was Nikola Tesla. And he changed the world by refusing to follow the crowd when Tesla arrived in America. He had nothing but the clothes on his back and a letter of introduction. He could have easily joined one of the established companies and followed their methods. He could have played it safe and worked within the existing systems. He could have chosen the security of employment over the uncertainty of innovation. But Tesla was not built for the ordinary path. While other inventors worked in teams and shared their ideas freely, Tesla worked alone in his laboratory. While others focused on improving existing technologies, Tesla imagined technologies that didn't exist yet. While others were content with gradual progress, Tesla was obsessed with revolutionary breakthroughs. The scientific community thought he was crazy. They mocked his ideas about alternating current. They ridiculed his concepts about wireless power transmission. They dismissed his visions of radio communication. The established inventors of his time, led by Thomas Edison, actively opposed his work. They had invested too much in their own methods to accept that Tesla's approach might be superior. Edison offered Tesla a fortune to abandon his alternating current system and work on improving direct current instead. Tesla could have taken the money. He could have joined the winning team. He could have enjoyed immediate success and recognition. But Tesla understood something that Edison didn't. True innovation requires the courage to stand alone against popular opinion. Tesla chose to walk away from the security of Edison's offer. He chose to continue working alone on his revolutionary ideas. He spent months in poverty, working manual labor jobs just to survive, while he perfected his inventions in his mind. People thought he had lost his mind. His former colleagues thought he had made the biggest mistake of his life. But Tesla knew what they didn't know. He wasn't just inventing machines. He was creating the future. He wasn't just solving today's problems. He was solving tomorrow's challenges. He wasn't just improving what existed. He was creating what had never existed before. Working alone in his laboratory, Tesla developed the alternating current motor that would eventually power the entire world. While others were focused on making direct current slightly better, Tesla created a completely different system that was infinitely superior. While others were making incremental improvements, the wireless technologies that Tesla envisioned alone in his laboratory became the foundation for radio, television, cell phones, and the internet. The power systems he developed alone became the standard for electrical generation and distribution worldwide. The principles he discovered alone became the basis for countless modern technologies. But here's the most important part of Tesla's story. When his inventions finally proved their worth, when the world finally recognized his genius, when his technologies became the standard that everyone else followed, Tesla didn't become bitter about the years he spent walking alone. He didn't complain about the critics who had doubted him. He didn't demand apologies from the people who had mocked him. Tesla understood that walking alone wasn't a punishment. It was a privilege. It was what allowed him to see what others couldn't see. It was what gave him the freedom to think what others wouldn't think. It was what provided him the space to create what others couldn't create by the end of his life. Tesla held over 300 patents. His inventions had transformed civilization. His name became synonymous with innovation and genius. But more importantly, he had proven that one person walking alone in the right direction can accomplish more than 1,000 people walking together in the wrong direction. This is the paradox of the lone wolf's legacy. You walk alone not because you want to stay alone, but because walking alone is the only way to reach the place where others will eventually want to follow. You separate yourself from the crowd not because you don't care about people, but because you care so much about people that you're willing to sacrifice temporary acceptance for permanent contribution. Tesla's legacy teaches us that the lone wolf doesn't walk alone forever. Eventually, the path you create while walking alone becomes the highway that others travel. The solutions you develop while working alone become the standards that others adopt. The vision you pursue while standing alone becomes the reality that others enjoy. Every technology you use today, every convenience you enjoy, every innovation that makes your life better came from someone who was willing to walk alone. The computer you use, the phone in your pocket, the electricity in your home, the car you drive, all of these things exist because someone chose the lonely path of innovation over the crowded path of imitation. But Tesla's story also reveals the ultimate truth about walking alone. The goal is not to remain isolated. The goal is to walk alone until you reach a destination so valuable that others are willing to leave their comfortable crowd to join you there. The goal is to create something so significant that the world comes to you instead of you going to the world. This is your calling. This is your purpose. This is your destiny. You were not created to be a follower. You were created to be a pathfinder. You were not created to copy someone else's success. You were created to define your own success. You were not created to blend in with the crowd. You were created to stand out from the crowd. The world is waiting for what you will create while walking alone. The future is depending on the innovations you will develop while working in solitude. History is ready to record the legacy you will leave by choosing the path less traveled. Walk alone like a lone wolf, not because you're antisocial, but because you're focused. Not because you don't need people, but because you need to become the person that people need. Not because you want to be different, but because you were created to make a difference. Your time of following is over. Your time of leading begins now. Your time of copying is finished. Your time of creating starts today. Your time of blending in is done. Your time of standing out is here. Walk alone. Walk with purpose. Walk with confidence. Walk with vision. Walk until you reach the destination that only you can reach. Walk until you create the legacy that only you can create. Walk until you become the leader that only you can become. The world is waiting for your contribution. The future is depending on your innovation. History is ready for your legacy. But none of it will happen until you have the courage to walk alone.